Hi, it's Jonathan Cotton with the Good Feet store. As a lifelong runner, the pain in my feet was debilitating. Finally, I went into the Good Feet store and found the answer: personally fit arch supports. They helped me so much I ran my first marathon that year. Then because I believed in the Good Feet system so much, I bought the store. I'm so happy to offer my hometown community the opportunity to find relief from foot, knee, and back pain. The Good Feet store is located in the shops at Stonefield near Trader Joe's. Book your appointment today at goodfeet.com.
Hey, this is Thomas Q. Jones, former UVA All-American running back, and you're listening to the Jerry Ratcliffe Show. Wahoo wah.
Welcome to the show, Chris Graham, Jerry Ratcliffe, the Hall of Famer, here on the Jerry Ratcliffe Show. And we've got sort of a hodgepodge of stuff to talk about here. We thought we might have we might be able to talk about the College World Series, but that ended a few days ago for Virginia. 2 losses, first time Virginia went 0-2 in that event. And I went out there for the brief time that Virginia was there. We'll talk about that a little later. We got some Virginia basketball news, both on the recruiting front and then the NBA front. We'll start with the on the recruiting front. Jarin Stevenson announcing his college destination, Jerry, and probably not a surprise, it's not Virginia. But what's the latest on Stevenson?
Well, I thought he was headed to North Carolina after all the interviews I'd seen with some of the North Carolina media outlets. It's a 15-minute drive from his house. He was talking about how convenient that was in case he had any issues. He'd be there close to his parents, and talked about how he hung out with Carolina players and with Hubert Davis and how cool they were, and various things that impressed him upon his visit to Chapel Hill. So I was pretty much convinced he was headed there. And then we got word that Alabama had come up with a very lucrative NIL package. I cannot verify that, but there's some strong rumors from sources that we know that would indicate that perhaps it was pretty big numbers. And so he committed to Alabama the other night. And, you know, he had visited there. He liked his visit there. He liked Nate Oates. He likes this NBA style of offense they run, because apparently this kid has NBA on the brain. He talked constantly about how he wanted to go somewhere where he could be developed into an NBA player, reclassify, which would get him there a year earlier, and seemed to be really focused on getting to the NBA. So that style of offense would probably be more, I don't know, would help him get there quicker, assuming that he can play on that level, which you never know. But he wants to be a stretch 4, but his perimeter numbers in the EYBL, this or whatever it was he played in most recently, weren't that good. I think he only shot like 19 or 20% from the 3-point line. So he's got some work to do if he wants to be a stretch 4 in college, and particularly in the NBA. But I think Virginia finished 3rd in the race. Obviously, Virginia fans know they're not going to pay that kind of money for a player to come in. And, you know, I don't know how serious he was about the academics and that sort of stuff. But certainly it won't be as challenging in Tuscaloosa as it would have been in Charlottesville, or even in Chapel Hill for that matter.
Right. I still can't figure out how Virginia was even in this race for this kid. I mean,
yeah, it doesn't make any sense when you think about it.
Yeah, for lots of reasons. I mean, yeah, the one and done part of it, the NIL part of it, being, you know, there, and then also, you know, it just his game and what he wants to do doesn't fit into, you know, the way Tony likes to play basketball either. I mean, it's not to say that you don't develop into an NBA player as a big at Virginia. We don't have a lot of guys in the Tony era who were bigs who have moved on. Mamadi Diakite, Jay Huff have been going back and forth between the G League and in the NBA the last couple of years, and then they're trying to catch on with Cleveland and the Wizards respectively. But you mentioned his Stevenson's perimeter numbers not being that great. I mean, you can work on that certainly, and he's going to need to. If you're going to be a 6'10" guy in the NBA and you don't want to be setting screens and playing defense like you would at Virginia, you better be able to shoot the three. And so he'll have to work on that. But I was making the argument, I guess, on Tuesday, because he announced on Wednesday. I was making the argument in a column that kind of what I was just saying there. If a lot of NBA teams actually, have gotten away. Most NBA teams, if not all NBA teams, have gotten away from feeding the ball in the post to a guy. And if you're 6'10", 7 feet tall, whatever you might be now, you better be able to play like a Kevin Durant and be able to play on the perimeter. Otherwise, you are going to be setting screens and playing defense. And so if that's your role, Virginia's a great place to teach how to do it. I don't know that Alabama letting you shoot the ball every time you want to is going to get you ready for the NBA any better than Virginia is. So, but yeah, I still can't believe that Virginia was even in the running for this. From Tony Bennett's perspective, maybe this isn't the worst thing that happened, that Stevenson's not coming to Virginia.
Yeah, and he wanted immediate playing time, and I obviously that depends on how good you are and how much you earn, but I don't know how much playing time would he have gotten here, Chris, as a freshman, because they have 9, 10 guys on the roster already, and we all know that Tony doesn't play 9 or 10 guys as a rule.
Yeah.
Particularly as the season develops, he kind of cuts that rotation down a little bit, but there's a lot of bodies in there that's going to be fighting for playing time as it is. And a lot of these guys obviously came in from the transfer portal and have college experience. And so it would have been interesting to see how he would have fit in here had he come. I don't know how much playing time he would have gotten it. I mean, if he came in and knocked your socks off, drilling threes and dominating and stuff like that, that would be one thing. But to come in as a freshman and having to learn the pack line from scratch and fit into a slower paced game than probably what he was accustomed to, I don't know. He might not have gotten that much playing time as a freshman.
Yeah, Jordan Minor and Jake Groves are two of the guys off the transfer board who will play in the post for Virginia. They're 1-year guys because they both will be in there. Well, I think Groves maybe has a second year of eligibility left possible, but Minor is a 1-year guy. He's a grad transfer. But then you have your other guys that could be impacted. Blake Buchanan, the 4-star who committed as a junior. He's coming in this year. Anthony Robinson, who just committed, the 3-star 6'10" guy. You'd wonder, okay, so if you're those guys, do you say, maybe it's too crowded now. Maybe we need to get out of here. If you're Ryan Dunn, who the coaches are really high on, definitely in spurts this past season, but he's going to get some more minutes and more run coming up as a sophomore. If you're him, do you say, man, again, maybe I need to get out of here? And so, you could lose guys for, potentially 3 or 4 year contributors because a one and done comes in. Virginia's not played that game yet. We've seen some transfers come in and 1 or 2 year transfers, and those kind of guys are kind of plugging holes and been very beneficial to Virginia in that respect. But yeah, the one and done game is a game that once you start playing it, I don't know if you could stop playing it. And that's so, yeah. I mean, if you're Tony Bennett and you get a guy like Jarin Stevenson calling you up and saying, I want to come and look at your program and I'm thinking about making you a finalist, you don't say no to a 5-star. But I don't know that Tony's too heartbroken that the news was what it was.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I think Ryan Dunn is going to be outstanding this year as well. And there's already chatter on some of the NBA lines that he may be somebody they're interested in after this season. So I expect a lot of big things from him this fall, no question about it. And So yeah, and we don't know, how good Stevenson really is. I mean, he's been great in high school and some of the summer league or spring league stuff, but um, it's a whole new game once you get up to the college level, and we'll see. I mean, maybe he'll flourish in a more wide open offense and become a superstar, but yeah, he may be stuck at Alabama for longer than he maybe anticipates. I don't know, before he's ready for the NBA.
That's definitely a possibility there. Well, other UVA basketball news on the flip side of things, as we were talking about a high school recruit looking at Virginia. Now, a couple of guys who finished up their college careers this past spring, who are signing with NBA teams. So you had some news on that. I've had some reporting on that this afternoon as well. Kihei Clark and Armand Franklin.
Yeah, Kihei has signed a deal with the Utah Jazz Summer League, and that's pretty cool that he'll get a chance to play in that league, because it gives him a lot of exposure, not only to the Jazz, but anybody else in the NBA who's shopping for a point guard that they could use. And who knows where that may lead. It could lead to a two-way contract with the G League, or who knows. And I think there's, I don't think the Jazz is overloaded with point guards, so he might get a stronger look than normal. And Armand Franklin, his mom, India, put it out last night that he is signing with the NBA champion Denver Nuggets. We've come to learn since then that it's one of those 10-day, I think, deals.
Exhibit 10 is the
Exhibit 10.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure what Exhibit 10 is.
I looked it up today because Jay Huff was on an Exhibit 10 deal a couple of years ago. It's basically a non-guaranteed deal, so it is, but you get a bonus and it can be converted into a two-way deal. So it's essentially they're taking you off the open market, giving you a bonus, and then I would presume he's in the summer league with them, maybe in camp with them, and then we'll see from there.
Yeah, and that's a nice break for him. Gives him an opportunity. Still haven't heard anything about Jaden Gardner, or whether he will get an opportunity or not, or maybe play overseas somewhere. But somebody might give him a break. Who knows? But
I would assume he's a guy that'll at least sign a summer league deal and get a look. He's too good of a scorer not to at least get a look somewhere.
You would think so, and it's great to see these guys get a chance to perhaps lengthen their careers and play a little pro ball. And you never know what happens once you get that opportunity. It's what you make of it, and sometimes it's what team you're with. Yet a lot of times it's more what team you're with than how good you are. You could be good and be with a team that doesn't need you, as opposed to being not as great and being with a team that really needs you. So
that is I was doing some research on our guys, Jerry, from the past few years, and you look at Jay Huff has been on a couple of two-way deals, putting up good numbers in the G League with the LA G League team and the Washington G League team, and he got a little bit of time with the Wizards in the spring this year. And but you look at Sam Hauser, he's a guy that wasn't drafted, ended up on a two-way deal with the Celtics, and now he's actually a guy. He was in the regular season rotation. He wasn't in, the teams typically, like Virginia, like Tony Bennett does, you shorten your bench as the season goes on. In the playoffs, he wasn't a rotation guy for the Celtics, but now with the moves that the Celtics have made in the last couple of days, a lot of talk about him being a rotation guy this year. So from two-way guy to rotation guy, that's a pretty good thing. So yeah, it's what you make of it. You get if you get a job, after that, it's just about how well you play and the right situation, unfortunately, too. Justin Anderson's been playing in the G League. He might be a G League Hall of Famer. He was putting up big numbers again this past year. He can't get an NBA job to save his life, but the guy scores 25 points a game in the G League.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. you would think some club out there could use his talent, no question about it. And I mean, look at John Crotty. He hung around in the NBA for years, and he got a chance, and he learned and improved his game and became a solid contributor and was around for quite a long time. So sometimes it's just getting that opportunity and getting the door open, getting your foot in the door.
Yeah. I was looking at some other guys, Mariel Shayok, who played 3 years at Virginia, graduated from Virginia, then played his last year at Iowa State. He scored just under 20 a game in the G League this past year, but he signed a pro contract overseas, kind of like Kyle Guy did. Kyle Guy played this past year in Spain. There's good money to be made overseas too. So, they can make, they don't make quite NBA money necessarily, but making $500,000 to $1 million a year to play basketball and live overseas is not a bad gig either.
Yeah, and I think they pay a lot of your expenses too. So
yeah.
You're kind of living for free.
They definitely they treat you well over, and they don't play nearly as many games either. The NBA schedule is 82 game regular season with playoffs. So their regular season's there. I know in Kyle's league it's something like 32 games, I think it was. So it's not bad. There's worse ways to have to go through life than playing a few years there and making some money and then coming back home. But yeah, for Kihei and Armand, I mean, Armand getting that Exhibit 10 deal is a really big, really nice thing for him. A chance to make a team and make a team that is now the defending NBA champion. And Kihei is going to be a guy, whether it's Utah or somebody else. I just think his heart is going to be hard to overcome. He's going to play hard. We know that when he's in the G League, in the summer league, that is. And he's going to play hard and impress somebody. Somebody's going to give him at least a G League shot next year, and we'll see what happens from there for him.
Yeah, and Anthony Gill played in Europe for a while. He made it back to the NBA with the Wizards, and then going way back, Olden Polynice, I think, played in Spain or Italy for a year or two, and ended up having the longest, I think, NBA career of any former Virginia player.
That's correct.
Made a lot of money, and so doesn't mean if you don't make it the first go round that you won't make it later down the road.
That is exactly right. That's exactly, and even thinking about Joe Harris was a second round pick, but his first go with the Cleveland Cavaliers, he barely got any run. He got traded after getting injured to Orlando, and Orlando immediately cut him. It was basically a trade and dump kind of move, and he was almost out of the NBA and got picked up by the Brooklyn Nets, and now he's making $20-some million a year. So I mean, if it's kind of what you said earlier, Jerry, it could be a right situation kind of thing. Joe couldn't get minutes in Cleveland, and he's been a consistent and very productive guy for Brooklyn for several years now and making really good money. So yeah, these guys have a chance, and we'll keep up. I'm sure you'll be on the lookout. I'll be on the lookout for what happens with Jaden Gardner, and we'll figure out what his next step is. And I'm sure it's going to be somewhere coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, Tom Newell, the son of Pete Newell, famous basketball coach, one of the greatest coaches in American history. His son Tom lived here in Charlottesville for a while. I got to know him early in my career, and he's the one that told me that he learned so much basketball from his father. And I think I know he was UVA's color analyst on the radio network for a few years while he was here, and later became a scout. But he's the one that told me how important that was, that it's not really necessarily your talent, but what team needs your talent. And so it's all about the fit sometimes, and not necessarily the ultimate of your skill and all that, but just where you fit into a certain club or don't fit into a certain club. So he said sometimes it's better to be a free agent and find a team that fits you and needs you, as opposed to getting drafted by the wrong team that really doesn't need you that bad.
I'll think of another Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon is a great example. He was a just a 3-point shooter for the Milwaukee Bucks for 3 seasons. He ends up leaving and going to Indiana, becomes a starting point guard, and now he might be the starting point guard for the Celtics. It looks like with them trading Marcus Smart. He goes from standing on the 3-point line and catching passes and shooting threes to running the team. So yeah, it's all about the fit there. Well, that's great news for Kihei, great news for Armand. We'll root for Jaden to win and see what his news is. I'm hoping that we'll see Kyle Guy make another run at the NBA as well. He put up decent numbers in Spain this year, and Braxton Key. I think I saw that he signed overseas. I was trying to keep up with all of our guys when I was updating on the Kihei and Armand news. So
There's a bunch of guys out there, that's for sure.
there's a lot more of those guys out there. That's right.
Our intern Harry did a nice little thing last week for those who may have missed it on our site, but he kind of went back and reviewed the seasons that all those UVA guys in the NBA and G League had. We might have missed a couple, but he had the majority of them in there. And if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But Virginia had an interesting visitor Wednesday, Chris, and Christian Bliss, the point guard that we've talked about on here before. He's visiting Xavier today, and I think he's still going to go back to Notre Dame for a second visit, because the first visit he had there, Mike Brey was still the coach, so he wanted to get to know the new head coach a little bit. And Kyle Getter was here then, but now he's at Notre Dame. And there might be one more visit on his agenda, or itinerary rather, that I can't place off the top of my head, but I heard he had a good visit here, and I think he's Virginia's top point guard target for 24. Outstanding player, and would be a good fit with UVA should he decide to come here. I don't think he's going to make any quick decisions unless something just totally blows him out of the water. But I would not be surprised if he ended up being a Cavalier.
Yeah, and point guard will be a need. Dante Harris is he'll have I guess it's 3 years of eligibility left, but Reese Beekman obviously will be heading out the door after this coming season. And so getting someone in this program ready to play will be a priority and is a priority for Tony Bennett and the staff. Any other basketball recruiting?
And plus we know that Tony likes to play 2-point guards at the same time. So
that has been a winning formula for him since the championship year, no doubt.
Yeah, he wouldn't have to sit on the bench very much at first.
That's right.
I'm chasing down. I think UVA, now that the live recruiting period is open again, I think Virginia has reached out to around 20 players. So we'll be writing something about that in the very near future about who they've contacted. And but I think that's pretty much it for the moment.
They don't get much time off. They spend the spring plugging the holes with the transfer portal, and then they get like a week off probably, and then they're out ready for the next couple of classes after. It's a never ending job, the recruiting job.
Yeah, and you wonder, with that and the NIL and all that other stuff going on, you wonder how that wears on a coach like Tony, who we saw what it did to Jay Wright, and may have had some influence on Jim Boeheim. I don't know. Maybe it was just time for Boeheim to step down at Syracuse, but I know he had to be frustrated with the NIL. He had mentioned that quite loudly toward the end of the season. And I have to agree with what he said. He caught a lot of grief for that, but he said a lot of people are just flat out buying players, and it's not the way it's supposed to go. But which is kind of disappointing. I don't know how you felt this week when the NCAA came out and said that they were putting LSU's football and basketball teams on probation. I don't know how much of I didn't read the details of it, but Will Wade, who was fired at LSU, is now at McNeese State. The only thing he's being penalized is a 10-game suspension for essentially getting caught red-handed by the FBI on wiretaps for talking about buying players. And I mean, how does it get any more exposed than that? It just makes it seem like that all those investigations and stuff that was going on there, where we had the false hopes that it was going to clean up college basketball, just kind of went out the window. And now with the NIL, I guess all that stuff is moot.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, LSU and Will Wade. I mean, God, it seems so sleazy when he was running the program there, but I mean, now it's legal. So I mean, if you're LSU, you got to be thinking, okay, so can we just, retroactively apply the NIL rules? I mean, we were just talking about Stevenson. Of course, it's not official, and I'm there with you, but we're just talking about how he got a big NIL deal to go to Alabama. I mean, so now you don't have to pay players under the table. You can keep your hands above the table and pay them, and it's okay. So, yeah, that's frustrating. I mean, everything about it's frustrating from that standpoint. I mean, I love the guys getting the money, but it should not be. And I know this is where Virginia is among the schools and the fan bases who get frustrated with how they want to be above board. It's not, the NCAA says that NIL money is not supposed to be an inducement. You're not supposed to be able to say, here's $1 million, come to our school. It's supposed to, the way it's supposed to work is you're in school. So now, you're eligible to reach out and make these deals. And Virginia wants to play it the right way. And there are other schools that don't. And, if you're going to be have honor, you're probably putting yourself behind the 8 ball. But, I know that frustrates some fans when you look at social media, but, Virginia is playing it the honorable way.
Yeah. And, I'm sure that they are giving Reese Beekman a better NIL package now that he decided to return. But nothing crazy like some of the numbers we've heard thrown around in college athletics. And on3.com has an interesting aspect to their website when they're evaluating recruits, not only with their talent, but their NIL worth. And I don't know how you determine that. I think part of it is through your Instagram and Twitter followers and things like that, and how much you may be an influencer, so to speak. And I think they had Stevenson rated at like $210,000 in terms of NIL value, but we heard that he got paid north of that to come to Alabama. But again, that's not official. That's just a hearsay out there, but coming from a fairly reliable source.
Yeah, I've heard the number too, and it's definitely above 210,000. Yeah, I love that little feature on the On3 site. It's more there just for probably bar arguments than anything else, but it's still a fun way, especially on the transfer. When I was looking, when the guys were out there, the Caleb Love and Hunter Dickinson and guys like that were out there. They put a really big number beside Love, and they put a smaller number beside Dickinson, and it was just okay. That's interesting. It's a good argument kind of thing. Natural grass or artificial turf, DH or no DH, and then how much money a kid gets when he goes to a different school. But yeah, it's an interesting marketplace kind of situation, and I agree. You mentioned Jay Wright. You have to wonder. And Jim Boeheim. You have to wonder. Roy Williams and Coach K stepping down in the last couple of years as well.
Right.
And Virginia fans are always going to be every spring fearing for what Tony Bennett may or may not be doing in his future. After every season's over. So. But yeah, I can't blame those guys. I mean, it's a tough enough job as it is in terms of the just year-long grind for recruiting. And then you have to re-recruit your own guys. You have to go in the transfer portal and recruit. It's now you're not just recruiting 365 days a year, but you're recruiting 730 days a year because you have to do 2 jobs now as far as that goes. And at some point that'll wear thin on certain guys.
Yeah, I used to think nothing would make Tony leave Virginia until, and again, he doesn't want to coach until he's 70 or anything like that, but I thought he would coach for a really long time. Now I'm not so sure that he's in it for the long haul with these changes, unless the Congress does something to give the NCAA some guidelines that makes it a level playing field in terms of NIL and gets the transfer portal under control. Yeah. Which I think that the portal, they are addressing that a little bit, but the NIL is to me is a train wreck. It's been out of control since the beginning and seems to only be getting worse. So who knows? It's got to wear on guys. Losing players through the portal, not knowing who your team's going to be from one year to the next, hardly, and then the NIL stuff. It's you can be in it for a good recruit, and then all of a sudden he's gone to a school that doesn't have a program as good as yours, but they're going to offer big money. So
yeah, and I think the portal is probably even, I mean, of the two, because you're losing recruits for NIL money. But the portal is just the kind of thing where that's where you don't have your roster stability from year to year. And that's been a key for Tony. I mean, not just roster stability, but coaching staff stability. I mean, he's got Ron Sanchez back now after, Ron left to be a head coach for 5 years. That's how stable that that coaching staff is. And the roster too, his Tony style of ball is so intricate. You've got to know instinctively where you are defensively, because that defense requires so much of that, and it requires timing and placement and just repetition. And the offense is rather patterned as well. And you don't just pick it up. A freshman like Jarin Stevenson, 5-star or not, can't just walk in and start and excel right away at a place like Virginia. It can really be. It's Malcolm Brogdon's a star in the NBA. He averaged 6.9 points a game as a freshman at Virginia. I mean, that's just a reality of playing at Virginia. And if you can't develop guys and expect they're going to be there for their sophomore, junior, and senior years, that throws Tony's model, on its head.
Yeah, and speaking of Ron Sanchez, I don't know, it's true because I haven't had an opportunity to speak with him since he's decided to come back, but I heard that he was very frustrated at Charlotte, like a lot of mid-major coaches probably are right now, because he lost his 2 best players through the transfer portal to bigger schools. And so that's another frustration particularly among mid-major coaches who develop players, and all of a sudden, after they have a good year, they're gone to a bigger program. So yeah. It's taken its toll all throughout college basketball.
College, I worked for several years as an announcer doing ESPN Plus broadcasts down at VMI, football, basketball, and baseball. And they've had that issue even before the transfer portal. Schools like that where, they take a ride on a guy and say, hey, here we go. We got a scholarship for you, and then a guy will come in and all of a sudden start excelling. Bubba Parham comes to mind, a basketball player who ended up at Georgia Tech. He was at VMI for 2 years, lightly recruited kid out of Georgia, ends up leading the Southern Conference in scoring a couple of years, and goes to Georgia Tech. I mean, that kind of thing happens. That's been happening for years, and it's even worse now for them because now you don't even have to sit out a year when you transfer. You can just go straight to a school. So yeah, it's, for the mid majors and even the lower level conferences, they feel like they're kind of treated like being like minor league teams to the majors in the Power Five, and they're just, and it's the lack of loyalty to kids when, if you're a VMI or if you're a Charlotte and you're giving a scholarship to a kid and spend a year, 2 or 3 developing a kid, and then they go somewhere else and star, I can see where Sanchez would say, hey, I've had enough of that.
Yeah, no question about it.
Looking for a great dining experience in Charlottesville? Look no further than the Aberdeen Barn. The barn has been family owned and operated since 1965, with Terry and Angela providing great atmosphere and mouth-watering food at Virginia's big-time steakhouse. Enjoy the fine dining or relax in the Sportsman's Bar, a fantastic place to wind down and socialize, surrounded by flat-screen televisions tuned to the latest sporting events. You never know who you might bump into at the Aberdeen Barn, where all the greatest Cavaliers have dined over the decades and keep coming back for the delicious menu and good times. Check it out online at aberdeenbarn.com or call 434-296-4630.
This is Chris Slade, former University of Virginia defensive end, graduate of 1993, back on the staff at UVA. Excited to be back coaching my old stomping grounds. You're listening to the Jerry Ratcliffe Show.
So, golf news. We had a UVA alum flirting with a 59 yesterday.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, you can call up the story on my website, and there's a video of our good friend Denny McCarthy, who's been on our podcast, came within an inch, Chris, of making a 59. And on the previous hole, he left a putt like 2 inches short of a birdie, which would have put him at a 59. And then the 170-yard approach shot he hit with a choke down 7-iron, raised the hole, missed it by an inch, which would have potentially been a 58 if those two shots had gone in. It's the same course where Jim Furyk shot a 58 in 2016, I believe, and at the Travelers up in Connecticut. And I mean, what a day by Denny. He fired a 10 under par 60. I think there's only been a dozen 59s in PGA history, so that would have put him in an exclusive club for sure had that either one of those balls fallen. And great for him. I mean, he's been so close in so many tournaments this year and late last year. Played well at Jack Nicklaus's course and the Memorial, where he ended up in a playoff and suffered a bogey, I think, that caused him to be in the playoff, and then lost the playoff on a bogey. And so he hasn't won on the tour. He's come so close so many times and been in the mix on Sundays. I hope he can find a way to pull through and post his first PGA tournament tour win this weekend up in Connecticut. That would be great for his confidence. And he's already known as the best putter in professional golf, but he wants to prove that he's more than just a really great putter, that he's got the complete game. And he's been pretty darn good about that this spring so far. He's had a good I guess it was a PGA tournament where he was so close, and played okay in the U.S. Open. Nothing spectacular there, but he did make the cut. But he's done well. He's played well, and this could be a huge breakthrough for him, just for his confidence, to show him that he can win on tour, which he's convinced himself that he can. He just needs to get over that hump.
Yeah, I'm looking at the PGA FedEx Cup standings. He's in the top 10. He's ninth right now in the standings. So we had him when we had him on last year. He was trying to get in the top 30 so he could make it all the way through the end. And he's one of those favorites right now to be playing all the way through this summer. So that's good to see. He's another guy that we had on the podcast not too long ago is Andrew Abbott, who made his major league debut earlier this month, and he's now pitched in 4 games. He's finally given up an earned run. His first 3 outings, he'd actually put up zeros, and he's the first guy since 1893 to have 3 outings of more than 5 innings with no runs allowed to start his career. That's a long time. 1893. And I found this that 1893 is when they moved the mound back to 60 feet 6 inches. So he's the first.
That's mind-boggling if you stop and think about it. Because how many incredible pitchers have we seen
Yes.
in our lifetime, let alone prior to that? But
yeah, Abbott he's 3-0. He got a no decision in his last start, but the Reds won the game, came back and won on Monday or Tuesday. I'm sorry. And the Reds they're 4-0 in his games. His first win was the start of a 14-2 stretch that has taken the Reds from last place in the NL Central to first place in the Central. His second start, which was another win for him, was the first of an 11-game winning streak that they're currently on. So he's 4-0 during this stretch. I mean, the team is 4-0 in his games during this stretch. And he was called up just because the Reds were struggling to figure out who their 4 and 5 starters were, and they were basically auditioning him for that role. I'd say he's got a good shot at landing one of those jobs.
it would seem so. I mean, I talked to a scout back in the winter and I asked him about Abbott, and he said, well, I think he's probably going to be a bullpen guy eventually. But it sounds like to me that the way he has kicked off his major league career, he may be a starter for a long, long time.
Yeah, his fastball is not off the charts as a starter. He's in the low 90s, 92, 93. But he's got great control and hides the ball well, and he's every time he goes out there, he's giving them, he's getting into the 6th inning. He's gotten in the 7th inning once, giving him 100 pitches or so per start, and they're being smart with him too, not stretching him too far, but he's definitely earned one of those shots for the Reds. I guess
I think he's developed a really good changeup. I think that started his last year at Virginia when he expected to get drafted after his junior season and didn't. And so I think he added that changeup and has made him a much more dangerous pitcher, and uses that a lot to fool guys as he sets it up with his fastball. But I think he has a good slider and a good changeup, and it's really made him almost unhittable. He strikes out a whole lot of people with that control.
He's a guy that, you mentioned that he didn't get drafted after his junior year. They only had a 5-round draft that year. That was the COVID year, 2020.
Right.
So it's rare to see a guy. I mean, he had to come back because he didn't get drafted in that 5-round draft, but it's rare to see a guy come back for a senior year. And then actually he was a 2nd-round pick. So he went from not being a top 5-round pick to being a 2nd-round pick as a senior. He also, he was a reliever his first 3 years at Virginia. Brian O'Connor made him a starter in 2021. And he was on that World Series team of 2021, the ace of that team, won 9 games. And so, his first 3 years at Virginia, reliever, starter for 1 year. Now he's a starter in the bigs and putting up good numbers. So good to see the young man, overcome that little bit of adversity, and he's doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah, we wish him well. He's a really good guy. We had him on a podcast his rookie year in the minors, and I think he was out in New Mexico or somewhere,
Arizona, maybe, yeah.
And they were just treating him very, very delicately because he was coming off a season where he threw a lot, and so they didn't want to damage his arm by using him too much that summer and fall. So they brought him around slowly, gently, gingerly, and their approach has paid off because he's been almost, like I said, almost unhittable on every level he's pitched at. They've had to move him through the ranks because he was facing guys that he was just dominating. They wanted to test him against better hitters, and he came in and did the same thing at every level. So and he's doing it in the big, so there's no other level.
There's no 5A. I remember, I'm looking it up real quick this year. So he has not lost this year. He was 4-0 in the minors with a 2.5 ERA. He's 3-0 in the bigs, the 1.14 ERA. And so yeah, he started the year in Double-A. He's been making the rounds. Going from, I mean, he's one of the first guys from his draft class to be in the bigs, and he's achieving. So that's great to see. It's another UVA baseball alum. There's so many of those out there in the big leagues making noise. So I guess we could talk briefly about my very abbreviated trip to Omaha. I was out there for just a couple of days.
Well, I hope you got to see the sights.
I actually didn't. I was on Saturday, the day between Virginia's games on Friday and Sunday. I decided to hang around the ballpark and be a fan, and so I just kind of, hung around Charles Schwab Field, they call it now, and watched the Wake. Who was Wake playing? Wake was playing Stanford in their first game. Went to the games on Sunday, and after the launch, just decided to come home. I couldn't miss all this rain we had this week, so I flew home as fast as I could. I should have stayed out there longer is what I should have done. But it's Virginia loses 2 games by 1 run with Kyle Teal and Jake Geloff each going 0 for 7 this weekend, and not getting maybe the quite the depth of starting pitching that Brian O'Connor would have expected from his guys, Nick Parker and Connolly Early. But that said, they lost by 1 run each game. And they had Florida on Friday night. Florida's in the championship series now. They had Florida dead to rights in the 9th inning. So I know it's frustrating for fans that Virginia went 0-2, but they were right there.
Yeah, I think the quality of those teams, LSU and Wake and TCU, Florida, Virginia, I think all those teams were so closely matched, so many 1-run games, that anything could have happened. And Virginia just needed a break here or there and didn't get it. I know one of the things that Brian O'Connor has said throughout his years that once it gets to be the postseason, that guys need to elevate their game a little bit and get that extra RBI, get that extra home run or whatever. It just didn't materialize this time like it has a lot in the past for Virginia. And, you come in a different week, who knows, they might have reversed all that. You just don't know. But I think that all those teams were so evenly matched that anything could happen. That's why they all came down to such close games. And even like last night with LSU hitting a 2-run homer in the 11th inning, the walk-off homer to win it. If that had not happened, they might still be playing for all we know.
Yeah, that was a classic baseball game. I know some fans might say 2-0 in 11 innings. That's a boring game, but I mean that game had so much drama, and really so many of the games out in Omaha this week have had a lot of drama. The 2 Virginia games, of course, that we played, and a number of others as well. I mean, Wake getting to where they got to 2-2 in their run. All their games came down to the last swing, it seemed like. So this was a great. I mean, it's still going on. What a great week for the College World Series. So many evenly matched teams, lots of talented players, and just the one difference I think for Virginia this week is just we didn't and Brian O'Connor was able to mask it during the season and also during the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. The lack of depth in his bullpen kind of showed this weekend, especially Friday night. Jay Woolfolk, he finally said after the loss on Sunday to TCU, Brian finally conceded that Jay was probably a little worn out from the busy spring with baseball and spring football. That's why Jay wasn't quite the same in the postseason. And so, didn't quite have the full strength out there in the bullpen, but all that with that issue with your 2 middle of the order guys going 0 for 7 each in the 2 games, Virginia was a play away in both games.
Yeah, and that's basically what it boils down to is, a play here, a play there. They could still be playing, but that's baseball.
That's baseball. Baseball can be a cruel sport. As far
Really
as
can be.
it's a very exacting sport as far as that goes. So, I'm
And
trying to go through.
30% is really good. That shows you how hard it is.
Exactly. Well, I'm going through my mental checklist, Jerry, of show topics. And have I missed anything? What is it? What is there anything else that we need to chat about here?
I think that's just about it, Chris. There's
Okay.
not much else going on. Got credential applications in for the ACC kickoff already
Yes.
for next month down in Charlotte. So it'll be here before you know it. But there's not a lot else going on. We'll just keep our eyes on recruiting and anything else that might develop in any of these programs in the off season. But we'll still have plenty of stuff on board. I got an interesting story. I did an interesting interview last night that I'll write about today or tomorrow. Is a guy who's a big Virginia fan, Tremaine Blair. He came to a couple of games this season. Talked to him after the games, and he's in his first starring role in a movie coming up. We'll have all the details on it. I think they're what do you call it? It's not the red carpet, but the premiere. The premiere is going to be I think the first week of July up in the DC area. So we'll have all the details on that. But it's another Wahoo actor out there. There's a few already. Tina Fey and Thomas Jones.
Thomas Jones, yeah, that's right.
I don't know if the first guy that we knew that did that in his first Wolfgang. God, what was his last name? He played football for George Welsh, but he was in A Few Good Men, and he played one of the guys that was being on trial. And can you imagine your first role in a movie and you're Jack Nicholson is playing a general who's barking in your face?
Wolfgang Bodison?
Yeah, Wolfgang Bodison. He was known as Brian Bodison when he played football, and he went to Hollywood and changed it to Wolfgang. I think that fits in better in Hollywood. But I remember doing a story with him, and he said, "Yeah, that was pretty intimidating, having Jack Nicholson barking in my face, and even though it was all pretend, it was still pretty intimidating."
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was one of our guys. Yeah, a 1988 grad. That's awesome. I didn't realize that.
You're just not old enough.
Yeah, no, I was still. Let's see. I would have still been a sophomore in high school then. So, it seems like 100 years ago now. But well, as we're wrapping up, then Jerry, let's thank the folks who helped make this possible.
Yeah, we'll go with Roback Sportswear Company right here in Charlottesville. It's all over the place around the nation, making great, comfortable, sporty sportswear. Some great stuff. I've got a ton of it myself. It's very comfortable, lightweight. Very, if you're playing golf or anything, it's very comfortable. You can wear it anywhere. And they have a women's line, and they have hoodies. They have the Q zip stuff. They've got it all, and it's very attractive sportswear. So go to our website, check them out. I know several of you have. We've learned from getting our feedback from the Roback people. So keep on shopping on jerryratcliffe.com, and you'll get a discount. And thanks to them, thanks to Aberdeen Barn, best steakhouse in Virginia. Awesome place to go for atmosphere and food and service. Got a lot of TVs in case you want to watch a sporting event or something while you're there. Nice bar and pretty much anything you would want. And the food is out of this world. So drop by the barn, tell Angela and Terry that Hootie and Chris sent you. And also the Good Feet store. Listen to their commercials during our podcast here. And Jonathan Cotton is the CEO, and I think they just opened a new store in Bristol and had Chris, you know more about NASCAR than I do. I haven't kept up with it like I used to, but Joey Logano, is it?
Logano.
Logano.
Joe Logano. Yeah. One of the top stars. Yeah.
I think he's one of their guys that they've signed to an endorsement thing. He was in Bristol for the grand opening there. I'm sure he's a good guy, or Jonathan Cotton wouldn't hire him. Jonathan,
that's a big get, actually. That's I'm impressed. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so he has some good people. He had Kihei and Jaden Gardner, and I'm sure he'll have a lot more Virginia stars in the future. But he's a UVA backer. So go by and see the Good Feet store. They have specially designed arches to help you walk and run more comfortably. And so I can give you testament to how good that makes your feet feel. So thank all those people. If you see them, give them your business if you can, because they're great people to work with.
Go to JerryRatcliffe.com, read up on the Hall of Famer and what he's got to say about Virginia sports. You can go to AugustaFreePress.com for some of the latest news as well. For Jerry, I'm Chris signing off. Everyone have a great week.